Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to this very special edition of Atlanta Business Radio. We are actually broadcasting live down at Georgia State Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. Lee, we get a chance to do this almost monthly. It is so much fun. Today is going to be no exception. Right out of the box here, we're going to get visits from some folks just a little bit south of here and learn a little bit about doing business with and in Cuba. I'm looking forward to it. How about you, man?
I am. This is going to be very, very interesting.
All right. So we got three bright, passionate entrepreneurs we're going to talk to. First up in this episode, we are going to visit with Miss Lauren. Lauren, your full name, your organization, and what brought you here today?
Hi. My name is Lauren Fajardo, and my organization name is Dador. We are a Cuban fashion and lifestyle brand based in Havana, Cuba.
So now how'd you get started with this venture?
Well, I'm Cuban born and raised, and I studied fashion design in Havana's Design Institute. And back when I was studying with my two co-founders of the brand, there was no real fashion industry in Cuba, because of years of economic crisis and lack of productivity and lack of resources. So when we graduated, there was very few job opportunities. And I started doing costume design. One of them became a visual artist, and the other one was making uniforms at a state-run company, because really that was kind of like the only work to be done. So back then, there was also no private enterprise allowed, and we really didn't have the opportunity to kind of build that for ourselves. That changed in 2012 when Cuba allowed and opened up limited private enterprise, and we kind of got together and thought about a project to do together. And that's how Dador came to be.
And then, so as a young person, you were an artist, you were creative, and you liked to fashion, or you liked to sew, draw? What was
yes,
kind of the catalyst?
I always loved costume. My mom is a modern dance choreographer, so I grew up being in the theater.
Theater, right.
Yeah, so there is definitely a creative background. I think what was really exciting for us and really important is that, since there was no industry in Cuba, there was no fashion, there was no places that we can go and find clothes or a creative space that we were looking for, we decided to create it.
But how did you kind of imagine it? Was it from a blank kind of sheet of paper, or did you have inspiration, or you've seen other things from other places?
Yes, you take from here and there. I mean, I've traveled quite a bit around the world. I lived in Sydney, Australia. I lived in New York for a few years. So there is a world vision that you have. But then when you go to Cuba, you're just inspired so much about what's around, the color, the city, the people. So also talking to other friends and other entrepreneurs, it's like you really find inspiration from the city. From
just the environment that you're in.
The environment, yeah.
And then, so when you have traveled around the world, and then you bring that kind of knowledge and that worldview back into Cuba, and then that's where your design aesthetic kind of
comes from. Yeah, it is based. It is Cuban, but it's also a universal, global aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. And then, so then when you have this idea, okay, I'm going to do a fashion line, and there's not a lot of other Cuban fashion designers that are there.
No, well, we are currently right now, we're one of 5 brands and stores in Havana,
right,
that offer Cuban made garments.
Right.
Products.
So you're one of 5. So there's a small group.
It's a small group. Yes.
Now, do you all have similar aesthetics, or each one is totally different?
No, we have different aesthetics. And it's actually really interesting because, we all know each other and we collaborate. So when we support each other. So when we do, events or runway shows, you really see it's kind of like
everybody
united.
Comes together, right?
Yeah, it's different, but then it feels like a whole.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about kind of sourcing the material, the fabrics, and the different things like that? Is that difficult?
That is a huge challenge for us because there are a lot of we have plenty of limitations, but one of them is importing and exporting goods. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to find the resources to be able to sustainably maintain a production line. So here, like you have to understand, in Cuba, we don't really have access to e-commerce or even like Amazon or wholesale suppliers. So it's really kind of on the go, and we build our business model around that. So what we do is we make limited edition pieces depending on the amount of fabric that we can get our hands on.
Right. So it's limited by the resources you have.
Yeah, it's limited by the resources it has, but it does gives a richness because then you're buying something unique. Right. Yes.
So now, when you come up with an idea, so you're the kind of creative
director
person of the organization.
Yes.
So then do you kind of sew it and draw it, or you have a team that helps you kind of produce it to make it come to life?
So it's three of us, the three co-founders. So we really design between the three of us. So we sit down, think about the concepts, the ideas, that we're looking for. I bring in the trend research that I've done, and then we start working from there. So we build the collection, the three of us together. Ilse, she's the visual artist in the family, so she's really the one drawing out.
A relative? When you said family, or you
Ilse is my co-founder. Ilse Anton and Raquel Janero. So Ilse will be the one sketching while we're talking about ideas, and then Raquel, who is our more technical production pattern maker, she will be thinking about, okay, well maybe we could do it this way, and maybe we can do it that way. And then in my case, then I'm thinking more about, okay, what would it look like? What would we reflect? How are we going to do this? More of the production side of things of this.
And then, how long have you been doing this? Do you have is there a line out there?
Yeah, we do have a line, right. And we are now almost a year open.
And now you're selling it primarily to the Cuban people in Cuba?
It's a variety. You know, we make 100% Cuban product. So it's challenging because in Cuba for a long time, Cuban products were not very desirable. So we're trying to change that by making a valuable, desirable product. And it's changing about the mentality of the general Cuban population that Cuban-made goods are not good, because usually they want more like imported goods. Mm-hmm. So I think that's also changing, and that's why with the other designers and with the other business owners that are in the creative industry section in Havana, we're really opening up to this idea for them that Cuban products are really good and good quality. So we have Cuban populations. Yeah, we have Cubans, but we also have foreigners.
The tourists, that's part of now when the tourists come, they come to the creative section and then they see the different things that are there.
Yes.
So now that's an opportunity for you that wasn't there previously.
No. I mean, nothing was there previously. We weren't there. And now if you're visiting Cuba, you have the option to see a different take on what this new generations of Cuba is doing.
So now when they've kind of unleashed the entrepreneurial spirit, has that changed kind of the vibe of Cuba, in your opinion?
I think it's better. I think it's great because like when we were growing up, I didn't have real like restaurants or places to go to. I didn't have this inspiration. I wasn't inspired by other Cuban designers. So I always had to look outside. So now we actually have the opportunity to look inside.
And have a community.
Right. So then you are also inspiring younger generations that they can also do this.
Now, when was the moment that you said, wow, this is something I can really get? You know, did that happen? Was there like kind of a light bulb moment where you were like, hey, I can do this here now?
Yeah. I mean, it was a transition. It's definitely a transition, but the light moment was when we saw that people liked what we were doing, I think that's when really like we realized, because before then it was more about like the passion
that you liked
doing,
it.
Yeah, that we liked it. We liked it.
Right.
Yeah. We didn't know how people were going to react to what we were doing because it had a totally different aesthetic. It was something totally new.
Right.
So I think like when we realized that people did like, and people kept coming and recognizing us, then
we must be good, right?
We must be good.
Now, do you remember that time that maybe a tourist came in and said, okay, I'll buy that?
Yes, of course. I remember our first customer.
You remember?
That she's actually like a really good friend of us, Kasha, of ours. Yeah.
So she's
from LA.
So she's from LA. She was visiting.
Yes.
Came into your store.
She was visiting. She was leaving the next day, and she had heard about us, and really, really, really wanted something from us.
Right.
And that was the point that we finally kind of just, okay, let's just do this, because if not, we're never going to do it.
Right. So then that gave you the confidence. And then how did you kind of do the transaction? How did you even come up with the pricing? Because fashion is so subjective.
Well, that was a huge challenge for us to build a business model, because we had to do all the cost sheets. You have to understand, none of this is set up in Cuba. We also produce everything in our workshop in the store. So we have manufacturing there. So we not only
design.
Exactly. We make our own patterns from scratch. We make our prototypes. We manufacture, fabric, and then we have the retail downstairs.
Right. So it's all self-contained.
It's all self-contained. And it's actually great because it does build a transparency, and people can see every process of the production. Right. Yeah.
So you remember that moment when she's like, okay, here's the money. And you're like, oh my God, this is real now.
Well, we had spent, about 3 years doing that project. So yeah, it was like the first dollar that we made for
all that time.
Time and energy.
Right.
Yeah.
So then were there a lot of hugs and high fives and tears that, hey, this is now we're going to make it?
No, I think we were like, oh, well, okay, well now you just keep working.
Keep doing more.
You just keep doing it. Yeah.
So now, tell us about the Cuba educational travel program that got you here to come in and tell us about the world of entrepreneurship in Cuba.
Yeah, so Cuba Educational Travel is an organization run by Michael Laverty and Colin Laverty, their brothers, and they have been doing really great cultural exchange between Cuba and the U.S. So they partner with a lot of U.S. universities and graduate programs, and there's a lot of exchange. They go to Cuba. Entrepreneurs come to the U.S. and it's a way to build bridges between the U.S. and Cuba.
So now, what was your expectation when the offer made to everybody that was affiliated with the group to say, hey, we're putting a group together that's going to the United States, who wants to participate?
Well, it wasn't really like that. I think we have a different, a very busy schedule while we're here in the States. We're going to a fellowship program that we have in Los Angeles, then we are going to La Jolla in San Diego, Boston, New York. So, and it's all based around the work that we're doing in Cuba.
So now, what did you think of Atlanta when Atlanta was on the list? That's not LA or New York.
I've never been to Atlanta, but it's one of the biggest cities in the United States, right. And I was really excited.
So what was your kind of how'd you imagine Atlanta to be?
I don't know. I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead.
so you knew The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead was filmed around here.
I saw it downtown from afar, and I was like, I know that view.
I've seen this before, but there's less zombies.
Yeah, no zombies around.
So now, what do you hope to get from coming here and going to all those different places and talking with all the folks?
A lot of times it's about information. Again, it's about bridges. I think there's a lot. People don't really know about Cuba and what's going on there. I think people have this idea of what Cuba was, and people don't understand what is this new Cuba. Like, what are the younger generations that are really trying to build the future for Cuba. Mm-hmm. So I think it's about telling people what we're doing, but it's also about know-how. There's a lot of there's access to information, technologies, certain ways that you can that you can do things, especially in business. There's so much to take from that. For us, it's also important to be here and talk with people and depending on like the advice that they give us and the people that we meet, see what we can connect.
And then for you, what would be kind of a big win for you to come out of this trip and go back to Cuba? What is something that you would be happy that you accomplished during this time?
I would be happy to accomplish if people heard this radio podcast and they would be like, oh, I want to go to Cuba and I want to check it out and I want to go visit these people in Cuba and want to check out this new entrepreneurship, what's going on, like all these new businesses that are popping up. I want to, because that would also be very beneficial for us. But also I would love to take back, all the the networking and what I learned and try to, place it in what we're trying to do.
Right. And use some of the education that you're getting from the different resources to help grow the community there in Cuba.
You know what I didn't hear that I'm sure she's thinking is that she wants to set up a Business Radio studio in Cuba. Do
you think that this would work in Cuba? To have
talk to all the entrepreneurs?
There's different people that are doing it. Yeah, for sure. It's taking off.
There you go. Well, congratulations on all the momentum.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep up the good work. So if someone who does listen to this wants to reach out and have a conversation with you or somebody on your team, what's the best way for them to reach out? Is there an email address or some way for them to reach your website?
We have a website. It's Dador, Dador Havana.com. They can check out our Instagram. That is Dador at Dador Havana. We're also on Facebook. So and they can always DM us and let us know if they, want to come by and make sure we're there.
And that's the best way to do it, right? Is next time they're in Cuba to come by and actually see the store, talk to you in person.
For sure. Yeah. And, I mean, we've actually had people from Atlanta come to the store. So it would be really cool.
Now, and then you're here at Georgia State University for your panelists. What's happening with that?
Yes, we're for a panel
talk about how to do business in Cuba or what that's like.
And what that entails.
So do you have an idea what you're going to be talking about?
I think it's about what we're doing, why it's important to do it. Because why are we doing that there and not, in a place like New York or LA or
you're doing it in all of them. It's not an
No, I mean, I'm more about like the businesses that we do, like what we do. Why are we doing this in Cuba and why it's important to do it there?
Right.
And it's about the opportunities, of course, the challenges and how we see the future.
And you're optimistic?
I'm always optimistic. You have to be optimistic if you're an entrepreneur.
That's right. Part of the deal. All right. One more time, the website.
It's at Dador Havana, Dador Havana with a V.com.
All right. Well, stay with us. We're going to visit with a couple other folks that are from out of town as well.
Okay.
All right, Carlos, it is your 15 minutes of fame, buddy. Lean in there and tell us a little bit about tell us your full name and your organization and your mission and purpose, what you're out there trying to do for people.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks. My name is Carlos. I come from Cuba. My company is Wajiros Films. Wajiros Films is an audiovisual production company. We try to help to create a new way to see Cuba in the actuality, because everybody think Cuba is only like La Habana, all cars, El Morro, El Malecón, and Cuba is more than this. We have 16 provinces. We have 158 little cities in all Cuba. We are 11 million of Cuban, and only in La Habana 2 million. And we try create a new vision about this Cuba, all Cuba, different point of view of Cuba. And we're doing that for 2 years. We buy in United States, we buy equipment, and we try to put this equipment to directors, musicians for all Cuba. If you have idea for a documentary or for musical video, you can talk with Wajiro and we put the cameras and we can film.
So do you film for them? They come to you with an idea and they say, okay, we want to do it here in this province. We're doing some interesting things here.
Yeah.
Come and let's film a documentary about this family that's been a farmer for a period of time.
Yeah, we went try to get opportunity to these guys and directors or
so you're teaching as well. You're
Yeah.
or you're not just handing them a bunch of equipment and saying, okay, come back in a week with the equipment.
No. we make some workshop. What's the word? Workshops with kids in small cities, and we learn them to film, to what is the best the best ideas for the community. For example, environment, equality, women's, men's.
So whatever the topic is, who's the writer? Does somebody write it, or it's
No. It's the same. These kids, for example, in Heredia, it's a small city in Holguin. The kids, we talk with them, and they say, okay, my preoccupation in my city is about the women's, the equality,
right? Women's equality,
and or the environment, for example, the beach, contamination. And he say, we want to film a documentary about that, and we create this workshop to make the tools.
Because you need a story, right?
Yeah.
So then, who helps kind of write the story?
The kids.
The kids write the story.
The kids. Yeah, and the kids film the history.
We only support. But you're there to help.
Yeah, we stay there only for support. And the same with no kid, for
anybody.
Anybody. We only support, and we have to another service is the rent of equipment.
So they can rent the equipment from you.
Yeah, for another kind of production in Havana.
So that's if they know what they're doing, right? So they have to know how to operate the equipment because it's kind of technical.
Yeah, they know.
And then you're helping provide the access to the equipment. So you're going and getting the equipment elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then bringing it into Cuba.
Because in Cuba, only in Havana, we have production companies to make films, or all the medias is or government medias. And we try to put access to equipment, high equipment in these small cities.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about, like, everybody here has got a smartphone. Do you show them how to use the smartphone to make videos?
Yeah, we do it. We do it because the most important is not the equipment. It's more the idea.
It's a vision, right?
It's the vision. And we try to create a philosophy with our clients or with our team about how you create or how you can put another view of Cuba with the cell phone, with whatever. The most important is the view, is the history.
Now, how do you so once you film it, how does it get seen by the different people? Is it at the theaters? Like, where do they go to see it?
Yeah, we create different space in the street. The theaters is complicated because in Cuba, the theaters, the government is from the government, and it's complicated. We create alternative space, for example, on the street.
Oh, so like it could be on the side of a wall?
Yeah. Heredia, for example, they have a festival, and we put all these movies in the big square for all the people.
So you have a screen you put up, and then you project with a projector?
Yeah, a screen or the wall, whatever.
Or wherever, right.
Whatever, yeah.
So that must be exciting. The whole community gathers?
Yeah, because they can see their own history about them.
Right.
And this is interesting because the fathers say, okay, my kid filmed that.
Filmed that, and they're proud.
That is important too because he say, why my kid? So this is a problem for our community. Why the environment? Why the equality? Right. And we try to create this kind of exchange between fathers and the government and the kids.
Now, how did you get into filming?
Sorry,
how did you learn about being a filmmaker?
I studied journalism. I was journalist in Santiago, Cuba, and the film was. I love film. I love movies, and I studied in my home.
So it was a hobby at first, and then you became your profession?
No, I always want to be a filmmaker, always. But I can't study in any of film school in Cuba. We have 2 film school in Cuba, but I was born in Bayamo, a small city in the east of Cuba, and it's difficult to
get the equipment and to get
to go to the school.
It's far away.
Yes, it's in Havana, and in Bayamo, only access maybe 2, 3, 4 people to study in this university. Was difficult for me. I studied journalism and make television, and after that I say, okay, I want to be filmmaker. I film my own documentaries or short films in Bayamo, and after that I go into Havana and create with my wife this
company.
This company.
Now, do you do it in other countries, or it's only in Cuba right now?
Right now, only in Cuba, but I film in Spain, Germany, France, Venezuela,
so
Mexico.
Your clients say, "Hey, we got to go to Mexico and film."
Yeah, we can do it, and we have clients from Australians, Spaniards.
So, how do they find out about you?
Website, and in Cuba, in this business in Cuba, is more like talking everybody about that, because internet is something new now in Cuba. In the movies industry, everything is about talking. I know this guy have this camera. I know this guy have these lights.
Right.
We're talking, and you have the client. It's complicated. Right now, it's different. No, right now we have website, we have social medias, and we can make a better business. It's different.
So now, what's your dream? How would you like this to evolve?
My dream is to raise the geographical, sorry for my English, geographical difference in Cuba, because we are a small country.
Right.
Wajiros, sometimes is like a bad things. You are Wajiro. You don't know what's your cell phone. You are Wajiro. If your dress is not okay, you are Wajiro. No, Wajiros is to the heroes in Cuba was Wajiros. The music in Cuba, el son cubano, the Cuban song, just start in the east of Cuba with Wajiros, Wajiros music.
So you're trying to improve the reputation?
Yeah.
And then that's part of your dream?
Yeah, one part of my dream. Another dream with my business is, we can make more films, feature films.
So you want to do feature films?
Yeah. Yeah, right now we make 4 feature films. In 2 years we make 4 feature films.
Are they comedy, drama?
Documentaries, fictions. We have 3 feature film documentaries and 1 fiction, more than 30 short films. So
a lot of short films. That's where you kind of practice and learn the craft.
Because we support all the new directors. And, when you are new, the best is start with short films, small history.
So now, what about the kind of music? Is at a lot of Cuba, there's a lot of music. Now, do you do music videos and things like that?
Yeah. We make. If you visit our YouTube channel, you can see we make too many music videos, because right now is the best way to make money, to support another project of the company.
Those music videos? Yeah,
music videos. Because in Cuba, the urban music right now is strong, and everybody want film and music video. We rent the equipment to film this video.
So they can, the bands can film the...
Yeah. With this money, with 1% of this money, we support the another project, the social project, know.
So what are some of the social projects you work on?
Sorry?
So the social projects are about equality and the environment and things like that?
Yeah. Yes.
So now, for you, this Cuba educational travel opportunity, were you excited to come here?
Yes. I think I saw my partners in Cuba. This will be different for us after that, because it's the first time Wajiros is come to United States, and everybody can listen.
So have you been to the United States before?
Yeah, but not with the company, Right. And it's a big opportunity, everybody listen, and I can learn about what is the audiovisual companies in United States, what is the experience. Atlanta, for example, is a big city for audiovisual productions.
Right, a lot of movies have been filmed here.
Yeah, Walking Dead too.
Walking Dead, all the Avenger movies.
Yeah, all the Avenger movies.
Yeah. I want to see. I once saw all about that, because in Cuba we are new in all these sense, and it's difficult.
And then, what's your favorite part about filmmaking?
Direction.
Being the director?
I love direction and post-production, color correction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's very technical.
Yeah, and DITG. I love that.
So now what about like CGI and the kind of special effects?
Yeah, just a little.
You're learning that, or is that a lot of do you need certain kind of software and computing power to do some of that?
In Cuba, we have all the software, but without a legal license, because for the embargo, we can pay for the...
Right, that's one of the challenges that you always have to kind of navigate around.
It's complicated because if you do film with special effects and you don't work with licensed software, you cannot put the movie in any place.
So now, for you, you're part of the panel here at Georgia State.
Yeah.
Now, what do you expect to get out of that?
I want to talk with the people and listen. I want to listen. What is the ideas the people here in Atlanta have from Cuba, and talk with them about what is the real Cuba, the real of the young Cubans, and the old Cuban too. And the change in Cuba right now, because it's in our hands.
So now when you're doing the work that you're doing, what does your family think of this?
My family?
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife is the co-founder of the company.
You're all in this together.
Yeah, and we have 2 kids. My little kids say we are Wajiros films. Wajiros, yeah. Because, we love the movies. They support me all the time. It's familiar.
So this must be very rewarding.
Yeah, it is.
So now if somebody wanted to see some of your work or to get a hold of you, is there a website?
Yeah, it's wajirofilms.com.
And that's WAJIROS films with an S.com?
Yeah.
All right, I think our listeners have been very patient. They've waited long enough. They've all tuned in because they want to hear this lady speak. Let's bring into this conversation Adriana. How are you?
Great. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we are delighted to have you. Welcome to Atlanta. Welcome to GSU. Welcome to the Business RadioX platform. So tell us your full name and your organization and your mission, what you're trying to do for people.
Okay, so my name is Adriana Heredia. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Beyond Roots. Beyond Roots is a company focused on promoting Afro-Cuban culture. In order to do that, we work in 2 fundamental lines. First one, we organize Afro-Cuban experiences, providing a cultural immersion for those persons that come to visit Cuba. And as a second line, we run the first and only Afro aesthetic shop in Cuba right now.
So now when you say Afro, what are you saying? So African culture was important to Cuba, and then maybe people aren't aware of that.
Exactly. So in Cuba, after we were colonized by Spain, we received a huge slave population coming from Africa. They were there to work as a slave in the sugar plantation. So African culture in Cuba is super strong. But I founded Beyond Root in 2016 because I was realizing that we were having a lot of tours about history or architecture in Cuba, but none of them about the way of living of people in the island. Also, I was noting that most of the visitors that were coming to the island, they were thinking in Afro-Cuban culture in a very negative way. they were actually really afraid about it. They were saying like, oh, this is witchcraft, no civilized stuff, and so on. And I said like, what? No.
Right. That wasn't your experience.
No,
Right.
I need to raise the bad connotation around that topic. So I came to my co-founder, Jose, and said, this is gonna be super crazy, but we'll be taking visitors to our hometown in order they learn about Afro-Cuban culture. I am from one town in Havana named Guanabacoa, and Guanabacoa is known by every Cuban as the cut of Afro-Cuban culture in the island, okay? It was a crazy idea at the very beginning because Guanabacoa is non-touristic at all. It's outside of the main touristic map,
Right.
but it's another reality worth to see.
So then what are some of the things there when you go there?
Exactly. So when you talk about Afro-Cuban culture, you really need to go and talk with people. These persons were forbidden to practice their religions, to maintain their costumes and so on. So we don't have books about it. We don't have temples, okay? All what we have is like oral.
Right. So you share the information by singing and talking.
Exactly. Right? So we organize some kind of experiences, providing immersion using the 5 senses. Is the main idea. It's not just about like a regular tour. It's more about being in the community, exchanging with people, dancing, eating, smelling, participating in the rituals and so on.
Right. So then this is not something they're not watching a movie about it. They're not hearing a story. They're kind of getting a whole, every sense, all the 5 senses, right?
Exactly. It's a whole immersion. First, we started with the religion because it was like the most complicated topic. We practice several Afro-Cuban religions in Cuba nowadays. But also, I was noting that many visitors were coming to our experience 2 and 3 and 4 times. Okay.
Wow.
Because we opened a door and then they wanted to keep
they
learning
wanted more and more.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's why we decided to start growing and designing like specific experiences. So far we have 7 of them. The first one is, as I was saying, about the Afro-Cuban religions, but then we created one just focused on music, then another one just focused on dance.
And food. You gotta get food in
exactly, a culinary experience.
Right.
Other one about Afro-Cuban visual arts. Just and the last one, the newest one we have is about the divination process, which is a whole world also, super interesting.
Right. So now what about, do you do it about like the arts in terms of the colors and the way that you use dye fabrics and things like that?
In the visual arts experience, basically we go to the Fine Arts Museum and we see how Black people were reflected during the history, okay? And we can notice in the museum that at the very beginning, the authors of the painting didn't have like a right intention to understand the way of living of Black people in Cuba. So we were reflect basically as those persons that used to do like the home task or just like the employees of the house, for saying one way. But then with the evolution in the history, you can start seeing in the painting the reflection of our cultural moments or the religious process that we were following and so on, with a deeper intention of understanding the way of living of Black people in Cuba.
So you have the artifacts that trace the history of that evolution?
Exactly. So we go to the museum and see all that through the paintings. The most modern paintings even reflects elements of the religion there, which is very interesting. And then we go to the artist homes.
To go to their home and see where they live?
Exactly.
Wow.
Because the idea is, again, an immersion. It's not just going to a museum. You go to the museum for the theory, which for me is very important. I'm an educator. That's the mission of Beyond Root. Educate people about Afro-Cuban culture. But then also I want you to have like this whole environment for you to
you want
learn.
it to be kind of visceral, to feel it, not just to see it kind of superficially.
Exactly. And then with the store, for us, that's our newest baby. We opened the store just 2 months ago. And it's the same idea. I want it to be like a knowledge space where people can go not only to buy, but also to understand pieces of our history. So each, product there have on a story. Not only the story related with Afro-Cuban culture, but also the story, that connect that with the person that produced it, with the entrepreneur that created
with actually the individual who was the creator.
Exactly, because
Wow.
it's not Beyond Roots producing everything. It's more like a
Right,
platform.
you couldn't produce everything.
Exactly.
There's too much stuff.
Exactly.
Wow.
So we are more like a platform where different entrepreneurs are able to participate with the objectives
So you're
of
helping
promoting.
other people,
Exactly.
raising them up as well.
Exactly.
So then this is quite an endeavor. This sounds very complex in terms of executing something to this degree. Is it going how you'd like? Is it doing what you want it to do?
Yes, of course. This is my baby.
It sounds like it's your baby. You're very passionate about it. And it's an important issue to educate the people about this because I don't think everybody understands it. And there's a lot of, like you said, I know in some of the, especially the religious part, there's a fear element of some of the religious things that they've heard of or seen in a movie that may not necessarily be accurate.
Exactly. So in our case, I all the time say like we educate visitors, but also we educate people in Cuba.
So still within Cuba, there's kind of misinformation about this, you think?
No, but in the education in that sense is different because with Beyond Roots, with the experience specifically, what we are doing is bringing the community together in order to host the experiences. So in my community, for instance, not everyone had the access to go to the university. They decided that they didn't want to go to the university, so it's like no professional level. And what we are doing is, okay, I know that you are a drummer and you know how to play drum, but I want you to study. First of all, because there is a logic behind it, okay? I want you to be able to explain each rhythm, okay? And the meaning of the songs, okay? So we educate the young people in the community, in order they professionalize what they do, okay? In like, they learn it in like, from generation to generation, but there is a knowledge behind it and we want them to rescue that, okay? And at the same time, we want them to be entrepreneurs. That's how Beyond Roots work.
Right.
So in each experience, it's not like I am the boss for saying one way. It's like each experience have a leader, okay? So I, train people. I transform them in entrepreneurs in that way they can have their own business inside of Beyond Roots platforms. Right. That's how it works. And most of the time, like the people in the community. So that means I need to teach them not only about how to professionalize the things they know, but also about how to run a business. Okay.
Right,
it's like you earn money.
And those are different things.
Exactly.
It's and they may not have had that experience before.
Exactly. It's like, okay, you got money for the first payment. It's like you don't spend the money. You need to reinvest.
Right,
okay.
You have to invest it. You want to make a machine that makes money,
exactly.
Not just have money once.
So you need to calculate and you need to have like a strategical vision and so on. So these are the kind of workshops that we do in the community. And then with kids, also we do like a deep work, in order to preserve the culture in a no commercial way. That's a very important, thing. Even though we are a business, we don't want to be like too commercial. It's more about preserving the history in a sustainable way because we need to be sustainable and teach them also that for us, like entrepreneurship, all the time need to have like a social impact. We have a duty with the society, and we need to give back to the society. So that's why also we have some funds, from the benefits of the company to host workshops and activities by free for all the people in the community. For the kids, in order they love the way they look as an African descendant, for instance. That's very important. It's like you don't have to straighten your hair. You are beautiful the way you look. Right. These kind of workshops also
to preserve the culture as well.
Exactly.
So now for being part of this Cuba educational travel program, what do you hope to get out of this?
For me, this is very excited, first of all, because it's the first time I come to the state. And it's important because many of the visitors I receive in my experiences are from here, from the States. So it's the perfect opportunity for me to understand also their reality, their way of living. Also, there is a lot of history of African history
just
here
on
in
this
the
street that we're on.
Exactly.
You get to see the whole Martin Luther King is down the street. His church and his where he grew up is just down the street here. Have you had a chance to see some of that?
I will do it later, of course. I have a list of museums. I was saying, like, Lauren, we have a lot to do.
Well, the whole American Civil Rights movement started on this literal street of Auburn Avenue.
So I'm very excited about this opportunity. Also because every time you travel and you exchange regarding to entrepreneurship, you get a different mindset, okay? This is super new in Cuba. So we need to be here in order to absorb.
To learn and
exactly,
listen. Right?
Exactly.
So now, have you done anything interesting so far?
Well, we just got here yesterday night.
Yes. Okay, so this is the first day.
This is the first day.
So any first impressions of America?
I like it. It's like you can feel the history. I was walking in the street and the people is super nice. Most of the time they are like, "Hi, hello, are you from Cuba?" Oh, Cuba. Everyone is very nice.
Yeah. And then so you're part of the panel this evening here at Georgia State University.
Yes, I'm part of the panel.
And then what is there one or two things you would hope kind of the American audience that's listening to you that you would want them to take back about Cuba and then the work that you're doing?
Yes, of course. We are here to let people know that there are a lot of young people doing like interesting things in Cuba. We also want people to understand how hard is for us to do what we are doing, because sometimes people could think like, okay, a fashion line or just hosting some tours, that's like no high tech thing, or it's not like a very important business. But when you place these businesses in Cuba, you will realize that like the context is very hostile and it's very hard to develop what you are doing there.
Right. It is, and it is important work that you're doing, because not only are you doing work that is good for you and your businesses, but you're also an inspiration to other young people to say this is possible, and there is a path here that can be sustainable if we all kind of work hard and work together.
Yes.
So that's important work. So now, if somebody wanted to learn more about Beyond Roots, is there, are you on social media? Are you on the website to learn more? So if I go to Cuba, I want to go and do one of these tours.
You have to. We are working in building our webpage, but you can find us on Facebook
or Instagram
as Beyond Roots Cuba. Okay?
Good stuff.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you all for being part of this important work. You guys should be very proud of yourself. You're doing important work to inspire others and to kind of serve your community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. This is Lee Cantor for Stone Payton. We will see you all next time on GSU ENI Radio.